Good afternoon, everybody. This is Daniel, and welcome to Driving and Dragons. What you have come to is another episode of D&D Reacts, where I do reaction videos to other content creators in the TTRPG space. This one is pseudo a request. Last week, I did a D&D homebrew reaction, and I'd mentioned that I originally was going to do this reaction video to Ginny D. But Ginny D's video, the original, 55 minutes long, which means this is probably going to be a good hour and a half long reaction. Now, I'm going to look for a place to cut it in the middle and then possibly go back and re-record a second intro to have a second video. But the fact of the matter is that I'm about to sit here for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours and react to good old generic Ginny D. What is this video? It's I paid strangers to write D&D backstories. Here's what happened. Based on description and everything, it looks like what she did is she ran out to Fiverr and hired a bunch of random authors to write D&D backstories for a character, and she's going to compare them and see what it looks like. Me personally, I think that's kind of stupid and defeats the entire purpose, but it's a fun little exercise. Now, this is going to be a video where I probably have more agreement with Ginny than normally. I'm a Hickman Revolution game master, and I'm very much a narrative guy, and I'm a world builder. And when I say world builder, I don't mean I just put maps and continents and races and cultures together. I mean, I write histories, find flashpoints in that history, and drop the characters in it to see how they react and what they do with that flashpoint in history. And part of that, you have to have backstory, because nothing makes a world like the OSR has this thing where it's basically like they want everything that happened before the character got to the gaming table to be basically gone. Like they have no history. They've completely walked away from their previous life, and everything is just going to be emergent from the game. That's not realistic. Real lived in worlds, you have a history, you have a past. That past is inexorable and inescapable. And it should be there to have that more lived in living world. But something tells me that the scope of backstory is going to be a place where Ginny and I disagree, because one thing about backstory, that's the providence of the GM. When your player hands you a character backstory, that is how their character perceived their past, how they remember their past. The GM is under no obligation to assume that they are correct in their memory or correct in their perception. Period. End of story. That's all there is to it. Just about everything in that previous backstory can be wrong and shown to be wrong later in the narrative. But that backstory should probably fit on one sheet of paper, maybe two. Even if you're starting at, level 4 or 5 and not level 1, even if you're playing a super powered game like 5e or 3.5, where you're doing more of a super heroic or heroic fantasy, and instead of the character just being a seasoned soldier who's going out to adventure on his own, it's like somebody who is literally already kind of at the pinnacle starting out. You're still talking about somebody who should only have a page or two of backstory, because if you're getting too detailed, you're starting to essentially railroad the GM. He's either going to have to ignore your backstory, or he's going to have to alter too much of what's going on around to fit that character. You're going to have too many situations where the history of that world, what's going on in that world, does not mesh with what's going on in that backstory. But I've already started this talking for almost 5 minutes now. I've already put this kind of thing in here. This is going to be a long one anyway, so we're going to bring old Ginny in and get started. One thing I am going to say, and I would love for you guys to please do, is make sure you like, share, subscribe to the channel. This is, like I said, this is going to take hours to get done watching old Ginny D here. So, find your way over to that membership button or to that super chat button, or click on that Patreon link and show us some love so that I can turn around and take that money and put it into more work on a car I'm going to give away to somebody. But I hope you guys enjoy this, and only of I paid strangers to write D&D backstories. Here's what happened.
Hey, quick interruption from the future. This was originally going to be a video about whether or not writers on Fiverr could create a better D&D backstory than me. I did not really want to talk about AI because frankly, I'm sick of AI. But then a scammer on Fiverr decided for me. So now we're going to be comparing my backstory skills to the skills of writers on Fiverr to the skills of a large language model. Okay, let's get into it. Writing a back.
All right, so let's just have a laugh here in a minute that old Ginny D did not recognize a scammer on Fiverr just by seeing what they had to offer there. Now, well, let's give her a little grace here. You never know. Maybe she just went in and threw out a bunch of purchases and then turned around and said, oh, crap, that one's obviously AI. But and let's see if she gives AI a fair shake.
Backstory for your D&D character can take hours, or it can take $5 if you let somebody on Fiverr do it. I recently found out that there are tons of people on the freelance website Fiverr offering to write your Dungeons & Dragons backstory for you, which, I'll be honest, sounded a little strange to me. Because even if you don't love writing backstories like I do, there are so many ways to get one. There are
So, right off the bat, I do have a little bit of an issue here with the entire concept. Writing your backstory can take hours. I don't care how uncreative you are, or if you're a little slow, or if you have trouble understanding, thinking of outside concepts. It should never, ever, ever take you hours to create a character backstory for a D&D game. If you are taking hours to create your character backstory, you are almost inherently going to be overdoing it every single time. And I would think $5 is actually a pretty fair price for somebody to come up with a decent backstory, because it's basically paying them to come up with an idea within some certain parameters, write one page maybe, and send it back to you. To any creative, this is less than an hour's work. It's just a pretty easy wham bam, nice and done. If I were doing this on Fiverr and I had the volume to do so, I could probably knock out 40 or 50 of these in a day.
Random tables, there are online generators. You can just steal one from a fictional character and file the serial numbers off. And plenty of people will tell you that a backstory is unnecessary, that it's better to skip the memoir and let the real story happen at the table. So the idea of paying a stranger on the internet to invent your character's past feels at best unnecessary and at worst kind of scammy. But I don't like to assume the worst out of people. Sure, maybe this is a cheap cash grab, or maybe they're skilled writers who feel like they've unlocked the secret to great backstories.
I'm going to go ahead and pop this in real quick. Something she brought up, because I mentioned it earlier too. Oh, you should just let it unfold at the table. I want you to think about this. Go pick up a book off your bookshelf. Don't care what it is, any fantasy novel. Find me the one where, unless it is a deliberate part of the narrative that is uncovered later, find me the part where one of the protagonists has no backstory, where we don't know anything about what came before, where they have nothing where they talk about something that happened in their past that matters. You're not going to find that, because you have to have a foundation from which. But the future generally is going to lead to dull characters.
Maybe the service they provide will actually make your game better. What if they know something I don't? Well, thanks to you guys watching these videos, I have some money to flush down the toilet over this, so I'm gonna hire 3 different writers on Fiverr to create a backstory for the same character. I'll hire a cheap one, a medium one, and the most expensive one I can find. And then we'll find out once and for all if any of them can write a better D&D backstory than I can. So the first thing we need is a character to create backstory for. I'm actually going to pick a character from a video I did a few years ago called I Let the Dice Design My D&D Cosplays. I just rolled on random tables and then turned them into costumes, but none of these characters had names or stories. One of them was a chaotic neutral Aasimar rogue wizard multi-class, and I think about her all the time.
Jesus, tap dancing Christ. What a 5e character. That is about as 5e as it gets. What did she say? A half Aasimar rogue wizard multi-class. It's like, what in the hell is this thing? But I mean, at least it'll make it somewhat interesting for the writer fodder.
I really love how that look came out. I have granted her a name just now for this purpose. We are going to call her Vega Lyrie. Just a blatantly, obviously star-inspired name because she's an SMR. My favorite thing to do with naming is just pick one very specific thing about the character and then just look up related words until I find something that sounds cool. Vega is a star. The constellation it's in is Lyra. Its Bayer designation is Alpha Lyrae. So that's where we got her name. The closest thing to backstory that she has is that I was trying to think of how to justify rogue wizard multiclass, and I thought, well, becoming a wizard is really expensive, so maybe she just started doing crimes to pay for her wizardry. But I don't have to get any deeper than that because I'm not the one writing her backstory. These people are. So I am.
Okay, so this kind of ashamed of her lack of creativity right off the bat, because rogue wizard multiclass is pretty easy to come up with. As a matter of fact, anything wizard multiclass is pretty easy to come up with. The simple fact of the matter is that these are not in any way incompatible, because there's magic, especially in 5th edition, but there's magic in D&D that supports everything. All you would be is, if I have magic, then I can steal more stuff. I have easier ways to get in there. There's a lot of easy ways to do that. Now, it's kind of funny that it's an Aasimar who's supposed to be of holy lineage, and rogue is pretty synonymous with thief in D&D. But, you know, who knows? Maybe I'll come up with a quick backstory for this fun stuff here in a second too. And I do, if I'm not mistaken, it's Lyra, not Lyrae. But either way, let's see what her star-inspired character is going to come up at with her Fiverr folks.
I'm going to select 3 writers to place orders with. I want one that's super cheap, one that's kind of like mid-tier, you know, affordable, and one that is like the most expensive one that I can find, so that we can see whether or not the price of the backstory corresponds to the quality of the backstory. I'm going to be judging these backstories on 3 qualities. Originality, because if I'm going to pay somebody to come up with a backstory, it better not be the most default backstory you can think of. Playability, just because if I ever bring Vega to a table, this backstory needs to be something I can actually work with at the table. And then DM appeal for me is like, would I want this character at my table? If I were the DM, would this backstory work? Would I be able to do anything with it? All right, let's...
That's actually not a bad set of criteria. I like her criteria on this. Originality is kind of a nonsense, because everything's been done, and I don't expect a Fiverr character to be too terribly original, because of how much you're paying, if you're only paying like $5 or $6, but also because when you're dealing with the general public, if you get too far out there and too creative, they don't understand it. And they're like, what the hell is this nonsense? Where is my stock princess or whatever? But playability and DM appeal are both big, big things for me. It's like, is this going to be a pain in my ass as a DM? And am I getting it run out of the table because my DM doesn't want to mess with this? Does it fit in the world in any way? Or in this case, I would say more is like, does it fit with the prompt, whatever she gives the writer? If she gives that, or if it's generic, does it fit into just about any world? Is it easily adaptable? And then playability, it has to be something that's not going to constantly derail my character. If I'm searching for my lost sister or some nonsense like that, I've got a singular thing that's going to just derail me every time the party's trying to accomplish something. It's like, I don't need to save the world. I'm looking for my sister.
Look, okay, here's a $5 guy. That could be our cheap option. Speed McCoy, a musician and streamer with a huge adoration for D&D and lore creation. I have been a D&D Dungeon Master for almost a decade. This is great. I think that if we hire Speed McCoy, he's likely to get a very high rating on DM appeal because he is a DM. So he's going to create the kind of backstory the DMs would like. 3-day delivery. Nice. Love that. So he's delivering a detailed backstory for one character, including roleplay tips and gameplay suggestions. That's awesome. I can create your character's backstory from as little as a name, their race, and their class. Perfect. That's really all we've got. Ideas on specific items, spells, class features, or other gameplay additions I think would suit the character. I will even try and create a homebrew feature exclusive to your character. This is above and beyond. If he's really doing this, he needs to charge more than $5. Part of what I wonder when I see these listings is, why are people offering this as a service? And I like what he says here. He says, I have a passion for creativity and I want to use that to help others get involved in Dungeons & Dragons. He sees...
I am going to say this on this guy. The whole, I'm going to create a homebrew thing for you. No, 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 no. Because you don't do anything homebrew unless it is with the explicit permission of and input by your DM. Your DM, the one running the game you're about to be in. You don't show up with some homebrew bullshit and try and tell me to fit it into my world.
This as a way to help people get into D&D by helping them put together a backstory that they know how to roleplay and that feels exciting and interesting to them. Sounds good to me. Let's go, Speed McCoy. Okay, now I have to submit. What is your character's name? Vega Lyrie. What are your character's pronouns? She, her. What is your character's race? Asimar. What is your character's class? Rogue, wizard, multi-class. What level is your character starting at in the campaign? Good question. Since she doesn't exist and you can't multi-class at level 1, I guess we'll say 5. I'm just gonna say 5. I often start at level 5. Is there anything specific you'd like me to include within your character's backstory? I don't want to risk them all coming up with really similar backstories, so I'm not gonna give them my little snippet of backstory that I've already come up with. I'm just gonna give them like free reign. There we go, Speed McCoy. First one submitted. All right, next up we have, I'm skipping anything that has like any signs of AI in it, like all of these AI generated images, because I'm not going to pay somebody to not do something. Charging for AI generated stuff on Fiverr is like that scam where you sit outside of a public bathroom and then charge people for entry. Here's
I kind of agree with her on one point here. Yeah, if you're going to charge somebody to use AI, that's pretty much a scam, unless you're like extremely upfront about it and say, hey, I'm just really good at generating prompts, and for a couple of bucks I can work these prompts and get you something that you're looking for. But no, I mean, why am I going to pay somebody to type in the same thing I could type into Chat GPT and get it out? Now, where she's wrong though is her whole thing is, I'm going to try and avoid all the stuff that's, obviously AI, like they got these AI generated images. You're not asking somebody to generate art. You're asking them to generate a character backstory. And you may have somebody who doesn't want to show their face for one reason or another, and or who doesn't know how to make a logo or something, and can create a cool little image to kind of get the idea of, oh, this is fantasy and stuff, but they're not an artist, or they're not going to pay an artist for it because they're getting $15 or $5 or whatever to do this. You should click in it and you should say, okay, this is what this person is, and then see if they've got reviews and stuff on top of that.
Scriptwriter and author. She is a fantasy novelist and D&D enthusiast who loves designing characters. She has been on both sides of the table as player and DM and have extensive experience with character creation. Okay, she's a player and DM. 3 to 5 page backstory for $15 in 2 days? Girl, what are you doing?
She ought to be sending 10 of those $15 to the DM, so that the DM gets paid for all the editing he's going to have to do to get that thing down to one page. And, for all the nonsense he's going to have to deal with listening to that character boohoo and cry that they paid $15 for, 2 to 3 pages too much backstory.
I'm going to have to tip these guys so freaking hard. Fiverr is just like an exploitation platform. Hey, what do you already know about the character? Her name is Vega Lyrie, SMR, Rogue, Wizard, multi-class, starting at level 5. Any homebrew information I should know about? Nope. What's the tone of the campaign setting? That is such a good question to ask. It's very smart and good that she is asking it. Also, I do not know the answer. I guess I'll just say heroic fantasy. I feel bad because I feel like I'm making this harder for them by not being like an active contributor in this conversation. Any themes / motifs / general vibes you're drawn to? She's asking good questions, so I think it is valid for me to like give her helpful answers. So I'm gonna say I chose Rogue Wizard because it feels I like the contrast of Rogue Wizard, kind of unexpected, and I'd like to lean into that. But she's really a blank slate. Go wild. I want to tell all of them, like, have freedom. Have freedom. Do what you wish. What I'm afraid of is that me giving them so little information is like going to be stressful for them, because I don't want them to be like, oh God, she's giving me nothing, and then she's going to have huge revisions for me, or she's going to hate it. Okay, start.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and point this out. I've had this discussion before on streams, and in various interviews and whatnot. I ran into this a lot with artists when I was working on Corvid Codex, because I would be like, hey, you know, just read the story and kind of draw the picture of what comes to mind. You know, what vision do you think represents the story? And they all come back, well, can't you just tell me what you want? You can't you just give me like some guidelines here? And in talking to those artists, it's like, yeah, because like they don't want that freedom on a commission, because your vision and my vision may not match, and then they'll do all this work and then turn around and have to redo it when I'm like, that's not at all what I wanted. So it's a lot easier for them to just get exactly what you want and try and make it, because then at least if the layout or the design is bad, they can turn around and be like, look, dude, this is what you ordered.
Order in the works. All right, one more. Now we need our expensive one. This one has a $60 price tag. Oh, they're in Nigeria and they speak 3 languages. Do you want your RPG or sci-fi characters to feel real, with emotions, motives, and unforgettable origins that shape their every choice? Yes, I do want that. I specialize in crafting detailed, emotionally driven backstories that bring your characters and worlds to life. Each backstory is written from scratch to fit your vision and game world. Okie dokie. $60 for a 5-page character background delivered in 3 days. This feels so stupid.
This is incredibly stupid. I'm pretty sure this is going to be her scammer. For one, I mean, Jesus Christ. From Nigeria. I mean, does it get any more? I mean, let's not stereotype here, but this is a 5-page backstory, which is colossal and way too much. The entire thing is all about, there's just way too many I'm giving you everything things here. This is way too many buzzwords.
Think of all the things I could spend $60 on, but this is a work expense. Here we go, $66.80. This guy only has 3 reviews. Like, for being the most expensive one, that is such a risky buy. Story outline / story idea / plot. I need a backstory for my D&D character. Her name is Vega Lyrie. She is a level 5 Asimar rogue wizard multi-class. Okay, he's not asking very many questions, so I guess that's what he's getting. It is, of course, worrying to me when the most expensive option asks the fewest questions, but I guess we'll see. I will write erotica customized for you. Anyway, I need to go. Just kidding. Okay, our most expensive Fiverr writer has brought me a bunch of questions, almost like their intake form was not adequate. To make the story deeper and more immersive for your game, I would love to clarify a few details. What world or setting is your D&D campaign based in? Is it a homebrew world or official setting? What kind of personality does Vega Lyrie have? Great question. Does she have a specific goal, mission, or personal conflict? Here's the thing. I feel like that is a backstory question. Like, what is her goal, mission, or personal conflict? Great question. If I knew that, I feel like I would know her backstory. Are there important events in her past that shaped her path as a rogue?
I mean, let me ask the audience.
You tell me, Wincy. I thought that was your job. Do you want connections like enemies, allies, mentors, or a secret prophecy? A secret prophecy, that's very specific. If you'd like, I can upgrade the project to include these deeper world building elements. Okay, here's how I'm gonna approach this. I'm not gonna do the work for Wincy because, like, out of all of these writers, this is the one I am paying the most money to. I'm gonna make sure they get as much information as the other writers have gotten, which is almost nothing. So I think I'm just gonna emphasize that the reason that I'm paying someone to write a backstory is because I don't know these things. I want these things and I don't know them. Hey, Wincy, I'm just gonna say that we're playing in Faerun. I feel like that's easy. To be honest, I don't know much about this character yet, which is why I wanted help with her backstory. I was hoping you could come up with something interesting that would be fun to play. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I don't wanna like lob baseless accusations here or anything, but this reads like ChatGPT output to me.
You'll notice that back on the when she was selecting this person, it actually said in the description of what they do and who they are and stuff, it actually had a thing there that said please inform this creator of your thoughts and feelings about including AI in the work. And I didn't see anything to click or her say anything where she said, don't use AI. Yes, this is very much written like it came out of ChatGPT, and it is hilarious that it is, she's dead right. They basically said, what's her backstory? So I can write her backstory. This would be an automatic, yeah, it's a no for me, dog.
Bullet lists. If you'd like, I can do X. That's like a super common ChatGPT ending of a statement. We'll see if they come back to me with anything. The other writers don't seem disturbed by the lack of information. So I guess we'll see.
A few moments later.
All right, we have some replies from Wincy. Faerun is a fantastic setting with a lot of rich lore, so we can definitely create something really interesting for Vega Lyri. I'm sorry, but this is ChatGPT output. Like, I'm just the style of all of these sentences. I do think I have to ask them if they're using ChatGPT. I don't think that they'll be honest if they are, but I also don't think that it's fair for me to like accuse them of it without actually saying something. Since she's level 5, she would have to have more levels in one class than another. So I'm gonna say she's 3 rogue, 2 wizard, because that'll allow a rogue subclass, which would be arcane trickster. And that just feels like it makes sense. And then we'll just do all wizard from then on out, assuming that I would actually play her in a game and she would level up. So I'll say we're leaning more rogue than wizard. They're trying so hard to upsell me. This is the second time that they've offered to expand the delivery to include a bunch of stuff. I don't want to expand the delivery if that means increasing the cost. Quick question, are you using ChatGPT or some other LLM for this? I'll just ask. I don't have to explain why I'm asking. I'm the client. I'm allowed to ask. The bottom line is, if you say that you're a writer and you charge someone $60 for a backstory, you should be a writer who is writing them a backstory. But we'll see. We'll see what they come up with. Maybe they'll come back and surprise me. Who knows?
12 seconds later.
All right, Wincy has responded to my question. They said, honestly, it's a mix of tools and workflows. Whatever gets the design and scripting to a place where everything clicks. The goal is always a polished, well-functioning game. Is there anything specific about the design or script you're curious about? What matters most is that the end result works great for your use. I said, I disagree. I think what matters most is that you promised written from scratch in the product description, and that is not what you are delivering. So I am canceling the order I have here in the resolution center. Ask the freelancer to cancel the order. I've mentioned that they said written from scratch. Now I believe they're using a large language model. So I'm going to give them 1 star and send my request. It is written from scratch, sir. Come on. So are you saying I do not use ChatGPT or any other large language model? Am I really going to just like fight with this guy? I don't believe you. Everything you've sent me sounds copy pasted directly from ChatGPT. I will dispute this with Fiverr. I didn't intend to film me live arguing with this guy, but he's being so annoying. I want so badly to just like read this guy the riot act, because I think charging $60 for like custom game writing and then trying to upsell me twice, copy pasting a bunch of stuff from ChatGPT, and like, please, I have other past work I've done before. I can assure you all my work is created based on my creativity.
1 hour later.
So this person rejected my order cancellation. He said, if you would allow me to get started, I will send you a draft in 2 days. Are you giving me the chance to work it out and deliver first draft in 2 days? What I don't like about this is that I'm giving him $60 for lying to me and scamming me. But what I do like about this is that now I can rip this guy apart in this video, and it feels justified because he's a liar and a scammer. So sure. Go ahead. He doesn't know that he's going to be featured in a YouTube video. And I would feel guilty about that, except for the fact that he is a liar and a cheat. I haven't done a ton of talking about AI on this channel because, to be honest, I get enough without talking about controversial stuff, and I'm just too tired to fight all the time. But I do have very strong feelings about it.
Really? You have really strong feelings on it. Nobody is shocked by that at all, that the green hair is a militant anti-AIer. Though I'm pretty sure Ginny was part of the, what was the Learn to Code crowd earlier. Wouldn't it be hilarious if one of these large language models was developed by a former trucker who learned to code?
When we talk about ChatGPT hurting real creatives, this is exactly what we're talking about. This person is taking work out of the hands of an actual writer. They are putting absolutely no effort into this, just bottom of the barrel, bare minimum. Like, this person isn't even trying to make it look like it's not coming out of ChatGPT. There are two ways in which AI harms our ability to get to the truth. One of them is you can use AI to lie, like this guy is doing. But the other way is that the use of AI makes us doubt even the truth. So now I'm like worried about these other writers that I hired and whether or not I'm going to be able to tell if they're using ChatGPT to scam me or if they're actually writing something.
Here's the deal. If they are good enough that you can't tell and you are satisfied with the product, then quit crying unless they specifically said they're not and lied to you and you can prove it. Here's the thing. Yes, I have a serious problem with any kind of deceptive business practice. If I tell you, hey, I'm going to make this without AI and I use AI, that is its own form of fraud. However, in this situation here, she's both right and she's wrong. She is right in the fact that it's like this guy's taking money from actual people who are actual creatives. And I would argue that he's also taking money from people who are using AI, but are at least ethical enough in their use of AI to spend a tremendous amount of time making sure that their prompts are good and clear to deliver a good product. The biggest problem he has is he's shortchanging a very expensive product, and he's also lying about it on top. So it's not about, oh, it hurts creatives. It's about he's lying to the client.
That sucks. It sucks that like this is casting doubt on people who might be real, honest writers. Anyway, this scam.
Though I am going to go ahead and put this plug in here real quick. In Corvid Codex, there's a couple of authors in there who are really fond of M dashes, which I hate M dashes to begin with. So for me, the fact that AI loves M dashes just gives me joy because it means I get to just arbitrarily remove them from writing. But my poor writers, it's like, hey, I got to take away this thing that you use in place of a colon or a semicolon or a hyphen or any number of other punctuations or writing structures because, oh man, it might be AI. And that is kind of a shame that you got an entire punctuation mark that is eliminated from our ability to use especially in any commercial capacity, simply because AI loves it.
Scammer is going to deliver me a draft, apparently. So I guess we'll see what that draft is like. But I'm not going to give him any more of my brain space today. I got shit to do. While we're waiting on our 3 Fiverr writers, or rather 2 Fiverr writers, and one person getting paid $60 to press the generate slot button, it's time for me to come up with my own backstory. That way we can compare and see who created the most original, most playable, and most DM-friendly concept. The only thing we know about Vegas so far is that she wanted to learn wizardry and turned to crime to fund her education. We'll add that she was born under the tail of a comet, with hair white as starlight and skin that glitters like the night sky. She's always felt like there was something big out there waiting for her. Her parents call her Stargazer and often have to remind her to come back to reality. I kind of feel like that already clears the bar for originality, because when we talk about originality in D&D, we have to be realistic. Mechanically, everything has already been done. Whatever species and class combo you're playing, somebody has played it before. There is no illusion that you're inventing a character concept that's never existed in the history of tabletop gaming. And I think that's fine. Tropes are tropes because we connect with them. Most of us have certain character archetypes that we gravitate towards. If you look at my characters, a lot of them fall into pretty similar categories. Scary lady, bisexual bait, and covered in plants.
Okay. So aside from the fact that, of course, it's, oh, look, sexy, ha, 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 sexy nerd girl bullshit, oh, bisexual, of course I kiss girls, I kissed a girl and you better like it so you can subscribe and, give me some more Patreon money or whatever. But Jenny D's obnoxious, pandering, simp mining aside, she is correct in this. She's correct in the fact that it's, is clearing the bar for originality. A, because nothing is new under the sun. B, because there's a very few there's a very small number of believable personality types that would be an adventurer in the first place. There's only so many things that are going to lead to those kind of decisions by a particular individual. And then, yes, I mean, tropes matter for a reason. Tropes exist because they resonate with a community, and that is not just a D&D thing. So originality to me might be like, hey, kind of a unique way to play it, or a unique way it fits into the into that particular setting. But really, originality comes from a sum of all the parts, and it comes from doing something better in a different way. It's your individual character is not super unique, because at the end of the day, while we're all quote unquote unique, we're all really just a handful of archetypes out there. And in order to be truly almost, as unique can possibly be, would be so far detailed that it would run into something that's basically unplayable.
Today I'll think of one that's all three, and then it's over for you bitches. So when I say originality, I don't...
Yeah, like she hasn't come up with one that's all three. That's basically the entirety of her channel is all three. And I mean, I'm not even going to say that. I'm not going to personally attack the girl on what website she may decide to stream on in the future. But yeah.
mean you need to invent something completely new. Playing cliches and leaning into familiar tropes can actually be really fun. What I mean is, what makes this character feel like yours? What's the hook? What's the one thing that makes you feel excited to play them? For Vega, I think the hook is the contradiction. Optimizers were quick to tell me that a rogue wizard multiclass could absolutely work well, but those two classes are still a weird pairing narratively. We think of rogues as edgy badasses and wizards as nerdy bookworms. Add in that she's an SMR, aka Tiefling's angelic opposite, and we end up with something that already feels unusual. And ultimately, I would argue that originality is the least important criteria on this list.
I do think this kind of just puts Jenny's lack of experience on full display, because this is not really an oddball combination. It really isn't. I mean, especially not just the rogue wizard side of it, because if I'm not mistaken, and I guess I could roll back there and pull up the Making of the Mage book from Ed Greenwood, I'm pretty sure Elminster was a rogue, started as a rogue and turned into a wizard, and then was a wizard until he started picking up some other classes. But I'm almost 100% certain that he started as a thief and ended up being a magic user not long after that. It's not uncommon. It really isn't. It just shows that she hasn't played that often, and that she's definitely been existing in this 5e world where everybody's obsessed with subclasses and that sort of thing.
The main reason it's here at all is because if I'm paying someone real money to write a backstory for me, I do expect them to go a little above and beyond. Much more important is our next concern, playability. If you write a backstory and then it never affects anything you do at the table, then why have one at all? The point of a backstory isn't to inspire a dramatic monologue or fill space in your aesthetic character journal. I mean, it can definitely do those things, don't get me wrong, but that's not its purpose. Its purpose is to inform how you play. I break playability down into two parts, motivation and complication. Motivation is the simple question, why is this character adventuring? If they don't have a reason to risk their life and say yes to dangerous situations, then a lot of gameplay starts to feel kind of accidental. Motivation gives you a reason to engage with the adventure, and it also gives you something to measure your decisions against when you're role-playing. When you're faced with a choice at the table, you can think about their motivation and say, how does this guide her decision? It's like a North Star for roleplay, something you can always return back to when you need direction. You know, Vega's Polaris. Sorry, I just want to say a lot of names of stars, but I gotta not do that, or I'll tear this script apart. Sorry. This is serious. Anyway, when I was brainstorming Vega's name, I almost named her Maya or Electra after stars in the Pleiades cluster, which is also known as the Seven Sisters. And even though I ended up going a different direction, I still really like the idea that she was one of 7 girls, and that's why her family's money was stretched so thin. I think she'd always dreamed of studying magic, but her family wanted her to do something more practical.
This shows a very, very modern bent to the way her brain works. I think this is actually a massive problem with modern D&D, is they don't actually play in you don't really need to be a medieval world, so to speak, because there's going to be obvious differences with magic existing and a few other things. However, they don't exist in a world that has that kind of feudal thing. It's like modern world with fantasy skin on top, which is also what leads to a lot of the nonsense that we deal with where, they're projecting so much of current day politics and current day social issues and stuff onto their games, is because they just have modern day with skin on top. Oh, she had 7 sisters, so the money was stretched thin. No, that was a common thing. You had big families back then. If anything, you had 10, 12 family members. You had 10, 12 children. Half of them were going to die in childbirth and infancy anyway. But on top of that is you needed people to work the farm, because a certain percentage of what you were producing was getting taken by the king or the baron, your feudal lord or whatever, as the land tax for the land you were working, and you needed people to produce more. And the simple idea is that a working person produces more than what they personally need by a pretty decent margin. So having a large family is what keeps the actual household running. So it would not be uncommon at all, and it's not going to stretch them thin. And it's like, oh, she wants to go to magic school, but her parents want her to do something more practical. Oh my God. It's like, she wants to go and get an English major and dye her hair green and do YouTube, but her parents are like, no, how about being an engineer or something? Or, at least a nurse with a busted Nissan Altima that's missing both of the wing mirrors. I mean, something that can pay your rent. So very much modern lens infecting this backstory, and to me, polluting its ability to be used in a good fantasy setting.
Like apprentice to a baker or a weaver or something. So she lied and said that she'd gotten some sort of boring apprenticeship in a town just far enough away that her family wouldn't be able to check in on her. And in reality, she convinced a mage to take her on as a student. But magical study was expensive, so she started swiping things from stores: books, parchment, incense, spell components. One thing led to another, and she got tangled up with the local thieves guild. The jobs just got bigger and bigger, and eventually she crossed the wrong people and got caught doing something serious enough that the only option left was to run. So
all right, this one's come up a few times on a few different videos in a few different places lately. It is a little off topic, and yes, I'm adding once again to the length of this, but Thieves Guild, can we please do away with this utterly ridiculous idea? You want to talk about something that's incredibly stupid, Thieves Guild. Here's what you should do. Game Masters, write this down. This is what you should do. The next time you have a player show up in town and say, I'm going to look for the local Thieves Guild, have them roll, gather information, charisma check, diplomacy, whatever the hell it is that you roll in your game for them to find stuff out, and have them find out, okay, the local Thieves Guild, they meet at the bottom of, the Bayou Rat Tavern, knock on the door 3 times, spin around twice, knock on the door twice, and then say the password and they'll let you in. And then when they go do that, they walk in and they immediately get arrested, and they find out that when they went around looking for it, they found a undercover cop who's like, Thieves Guild, are you stupid? You just admitted to being a thief, so you get to go to jail, and we're going to hang you tomorrow. If there's organized crime, it's not a guild. They don't have a guild hall. This is so stupid.
Vega's motivation at the beginning of the adventure is pretty simple: stay ahead of the law. This leads really naturally into the next part of playability, complication. I think this is a little bit of a level 2 technique. It's not required, but I think it has a huge impact on how useful and interesting a backstory is when actually brought into play at the table. Obviously, every D&D character has flaws. That's built into the mechanics of the game. You're not going to be good at everything. But a complication, to me, is a narrative flaw, something that gets in your character's way as they navigate the world. In Vega's case, being on the run is an ongoing complication. She can't settle down in one place. She can't attract too much attention. Even being recognized in a positive way could expose her. So if the party does something heroic and the mayor wants to give them the key to the city or something, Vega would be like, great job, everyone. We need to be gone by sunrise. I like these kinds of obstacles because they create decisions. And more importantly, they make sure everyone at the table is making their decisions based on different factors. Without obstacles in the way, most of us are going to gravitate towards the same basic things. Do the right thing, do the thing that gets rewarded, do the easiest thing. But once characters start carrying their own baggage, suddenly everyone is navigating different obstacles and making different decisions. And that is where roleplay lives. Now all we have left is the fun.
You know, you could actually just fix that with alignment too. If you're actually playing into the morality and the ethics of your character, they might make different decisions and whatnot based on how they view the world and how their brain works. But that might require too much, I don't know, common sense and not doing the morally relativistic bullshit. She's not wrong. She's not terrible here, especially if you look at it from a modern perspective. It is a good thing. I wouldn't call it a level 2 technique. I'd call it pretty basic. If you've got 3 paragraphs on one page of a character backstory, the first paragraph frames things, you know, where they come from, who they are, what they do. The second one sets up their motivation, and the third one sets up their complication. And their complication is very simply, you know, she's got it right. It's a impetus for them to do things or something that can derail their plans in others.
Final concern, DM appeal. A backstory might be great for the player, but not all that helpful for the game master. Or worse, it might even make their job harder. As a DM, my favorite backstories are the ones with plenty of loose threads for me to pull on. When I say threads, I'm talking about things like characters, unsolved mysteries, significant events, anything that could come up again over the course of the campaign. And when I say loose, I mean they should be flexible enough that I, as the DM, can use some of my own creativity to incorporate it with my own plot lines or the backstories of other player characters. Vega's backstory has 2 shining examples of loose threads, her mentor and her crime. Sure, I could invent an NPC to be her mentor and detail the specifics of the crime that she committed, but if I leave those things open instead, the DM can use those opportunities to make Vega's backstory part of the campaign as a whole. What if her mentor was another player character's grandfather, or an important mage from the DM's main plotline? Or maybe her crime was stealing the family heirloom that another player is adventuring to try and recover. Maybe the Thieves Guild was actually working for the big bad, and by committing her crime, she put a powerful object into the villain's hands, making her partially responsible for whatever havoc they wreak during the campaign. Because these pieces are flexible, the DM can connect them to elements of their own world and plot in a way that makes Vega feel like she's been part of this story all along. This is what makes a character feel anchored in the world instead of incidental to it. So that's my...
Okay, so that is far and away the best of the 3 descriptions that she gave. It's not complete. Honestly, I think she doesn't go far enough. I think that what she's saying leaves things a little bit too vague. There should be a little bit more detail about the crime. There should be a little bit more detail about the mentor. Just a little bit, because you're talking about things that are very intrinsic to the character, so they should have more knowledge about it. But in principle, she is correct. The idea here is that you do want to leave your backstory loose enough that the game master can play around with it. If you want your backstory stuff to come into play, you need to leave it open enough that the game master can turn around and say, hey, I'm going to work this in, or I'm not going to work this in, or this is how I'm going to handle it. Give them the malleability to fit it into the history of the world or the history of the locality.
Version of Vega's backstory. It's got a unique hook, clear motivation to guide my roleplay, and it has 2 really strong loose threads for the DM to play with. Not to toot my own horn, but toot toot. I think it's pretty good. I will see you back here in a few days to see how it stacks up against the professionals.
Okay, so I'm actually going to cut part 1 right here, because I think this is a good place to cut part 1. Yeah, so far, Ginny D she's getting on base a lot more often than she's striking out here this time. So I was correct in the idea that I do think I'm going to agree with her a little bit more than I normally do. There are still some problems here. There are still some of her picadillos and the things we typically mock and make fun of here. And ironically, generally, it wasn't the generic stuff that she got wrong. She was actually correct about some of the generic stuff this time. But we're going to find out what the professionals come up with. I have a serious problem with these professionals. I'm going to go ahead and put this out here. I think the first guy is probably going to be my favorite, because everybody else, one is the obvious AI scammer guy from Nigeria. I mean, seriously, the jokes write themselves. Ginny D sent her $60 to the Nigerian Prince, who promised her a $1 billion backstory that included her being a distant relation and royalty. But at the same time, even the second person, they're talking way too much text, way too many pages. I could see that possibly being okay in the realm of, okay, you're paying for this backstory. I'm going to give you extra to give you room to trim stuff or to, cutting pieces out of what is really going to fit with your GM's campaign, since nobody's consulting the game master here. I do think that we have, actually, I think Jenny D's backstory is not bad. I think it is actually perfectly functional in the way that she put it together. And it's something that I would definitely be able to work with. The only thing I'm not saying I'm going to call bullshit on this. I'm going to give her the grace of taking her 100% at face value. But I just get the feeling that she is doing a lot less backstorying than she would normally do in one of her games, in one of her plays, because she's intentionally trying to say, okay, I'm going to do this, this quick minor thing to compare to these Fiverr writers. I'm not necessarily going to go here and really, put in the effort that I would normally put in, but I'm going to go ahead and give her the benefit of the doubt on that. All right, guys, like I said, this is part 1. I'm going to come back. We'll have part 2. I'm probably going to launch part 2 a few days later. I'm going to give this to members. Members will get both parts at the same time, period, in the story. So you're watching this. If you're a member, you have access to both. If you're not a member, members got access to part 1 and 2 a couple of days ago, and now you're having to watch this after they've already gotten the chance to hop down in the comment section and talk about all the great goodies and got your spoilers you got to watch out for. So, man, hit up that membership button and get this stuff a little bit early. But anyway, guys, that's what I got for right now. See you guys on the next one. And I'm going to sit down and record part 2.